Cimoooooooo! What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So amidst all the Banlist hype that took place this week, we now have the OCG Banlist getting released for July. This is really cool. I like to bring you guys these videos every time we get an OCG Banlist purely because it's interesting to take a peek at what they have going on over in their format and seeing how those changes might affect what we have coming. Obviously, there are a few sets ahead of us. They have a completely different card pool, completely different ban list, but more often than not, we do tend to follow some of the things that the OCG does, and that's why it's always interesting to do these videos and then kind of look back to see how the changes in the OCG ended up affecting things here for us. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, before I get into the full breakdown of the ban list itself, I want to give you guys kind of an overview of what the OCG Meta Game looks like. This is from Road to the King, great source for any OCG info, just to get some insight into how their format is taking place. One thing to note, even though we've kind of been experiencing quarantine worldwide, in the OCG, from my understanding, they've actually still been having some in-person tournaments. I know they took a break like a majority of us did, but they actually got back to in-store play rather quickly compared to some of the more Western nations like the US and EU. So keep that in mind, that they actually do have some data here that might be a little bit more accurate of in-person play rather than just online play by comparison. So here's the most recent article from Road to the King, showing Infernoble Knight being at a very high slice of the chunk here, 17.5%. That's almost, a fifth of the metagame. Dragma invoked Shadal. Sky Striker still hanging in there. Keep in mind, they still have Engage, so that also helps. But we have Sky Striker legal here too, without Engage, so I mean, that doesn't mean anything. Dragma Eldritch Orcus is still hanging in there too, and then there's some other decks as well. But this is kind of how their metagame has been trending. There's some other pie charts from previous articles, but they've kind of been leaning towards this direction since this is like the most recent one. So keep in mind that in a post Rise of the Duelist world, which comes out about a month or so from now at the time of recording this video, Infernoble Knight and Dragma Invoked, or excuse me, just Dragma in general, because there's 3 different Dragma variants, you might be seeing these decks a lot. Now I want to show you guys just kind of what some of these deck lists look like. Infernoble Knight, just this crazy, ridiculous combo deck. You can see a lot of the cards here we're actually going to be getting both in Toon Chaos, as a matter of fact, because Toon Chaos is giving us some of the cards from the structure deck that contained the God Phoenix Gearfried up here that we never saw in the TCG, but we're getting cards for that, like this jump promo, different things like that. But we're also going to be getting some of these cards in Rise of the Duelist to kind of round out this strategy, because there are some Infernoble Knight cards in there, like the Synchros and so forth. Now, just to, again, I want to show you guys these decks just in case any of these cards do get hit. Keep in mind they have cards like Link Cross at 1, Needle Fiber is at 1, they still have Auroradon, different things like that. Slightly different format, but again, it's still interesting to take a look at. We also have Dragma Invoked. Again, a lot of these Dragma cards here are very splashable. It's kind of funny how like Invoked is a very splashable archetype, but Dragma is just as splashable, and you'll be seeing that in a ton of different decks too. So cards of note there. Then again, Shadal, we're going to be seeing some variants of this, I imagine, as well. I like the Eldritch, the Golden Lord tech in this deck in particular. Sky Striker, yeah, must be nice to have Engage, huh? But look, I mean, they still are playing tons of hand traps in their build as well. Pretty similar, I would say, apart from just Engage and Max C, these lists aren't too far off from what we're playing in the TCG, so that's actually kind of cool to see. And then lastly, here's just like a pure Eldritch list, or not pure Eldritch, excuse me, Dragma Eldritch, just showing the flexibility of the Dragma cards, but also the Eldritch cards in addition to that. So let's not keep you guys waiting any longer and go into this ban list. So first off, forbidden is Link Cross. Now, keep in mind, in the OCG, Link Cross was limited already. So Crystron Needle Fiber, Crystron Halki Fibrax was also already limited. So keep that in mind as well. So they were already at 1 Halki Fibrax, 1 Link Cross. So now they've actually gone and banned Link Cross. This is pretty significant for this Infernoble Knight deck from what I've been seeing, because a lot of the Infernoble Knight combos actually use Link Cross as one of its key combo pieces. I don't think it's the end of the world necessarily, because they still have Halki Fibrax, so they can still go and do some things with like Auroradon. I mean, you could just play like, the desk bot and just go into, plays like that. You don't get these free tokens off of Link Cross, which is unfortunate, so the combos may not be as powerful as they used to be, but is it the end all be all? I don't necessarily think so. People are going to find ways to work around it, but this is a pretty big hit. Again, Link Cross was hit the ban list right after it was released in Eternity Code in the OCG. then it's banned the second ban list. So that probably tells us that Linkross isn't too healthy for the game. I think one of the things you can look at here is when you look at Halqifibrax in general is that look at all the cards that they are banning around Halqifibrax that they're having to like just get rid of because that card's in the game. They must really love the card. And I mean, I guess that's perfectly viable, but you have to think that card has existed in the OCG for like 2 years now, maybe even 3. It's lived through Summon Sorceress. It's lived through like so many other different incarnations of decks that we've never had to play Halqifibrax in. So I don't know, but I mean, I think this is a good hit. A lot of people feel that Linkross is not a card that is very healthy for the game. I would have to agree with that. I mean, obviously, you know, Needle Fiber is another one, but I mean, if you're gonna hit one or the other, if you're gonna hit one, like that's better than not hitting either. They just both can't be at one. They both just create too much advantage. We know Link monsters are capable of just making so much advantage off of tokens. It's absurd. So now we're going into semi-limiteds here. So we have a few. We have White Dragon Wyver Burster. This is a bit interesting. Now, we all know how powerful the baby Chaos Dragons are. What's interesting is that we are getting Toon Chaos, which is going to have those new cards for the Chaos support. And there's some pretty cool combos you can do, but Wyver Burster being at 1 kind of limits how consistent those combos are. Now, to be fair, the OCG doesn't have Toon Chaos yet, but I have a hunch that they're probably going to be getting those cards sooner rather than later in one of their special sets that like we don't get here in the TCG. If I had to guess, that's probably going to be the case and probably why they moved this card to 2 to maybe help promote that set a little bit. Machiura for the Destructor. This might alarm some of you, but if you didn't see the last ban list, this went to 1 with an errata. The errata makes the card virtually unplayable. No one even touched the card when it came off the ban list. People tried, but it just didn't work. And yeah, so this card is pretty much just going to 2 now because it can go off the ban list and there's no point for it to exist. Necroface at 3. Hey, guess what? We have that here in the TCG. We've seen what this can do. It's fine. Like, at the very most, what Gren Maju might play it just for some more banishing power, just so you can one-punch people. But, like, oh, I guess we saw, like, the Inferno Tempest shenanigans, too. But, like, even then, like, this card is well beyond its years, and it's so far gone in terms of, like, power creep. Like, it's fine. No one's really going to care about this. I think, if anything, we've proven in the TCG that this is okay. And then Lone Fire. This might be a shock to some of you to see this coming to 2, but Plant FDK was one of the strongest decks in the OCG for quite some time. They might still be a little bit scarred, and they're just wanting to just put this as a precaution. We have it here in the TCG at 3, and it's perfectly fine. You'll see it spawn in some, like, random rogue decks every once in a while, but the card's very good, but, like, at the moment, there isn't really, like, a home for it, and it's fine. There's really no reason that couldn't go there. And then we have cards going to Unlimited. Deep Sea Diva, I think the OCG will be excited about this going to 3. We have it here in the TCG at 3, and it's cool because it makes water just slightly more viable, and, you know, people who love water are going to appreciate that. Draconet's another one. Draconet was a 1-card combo. It was a 1-card FDK, I think, for some decks, but it was also just 1 card, like, you know, infinite negation board, like basically I win. And so now that those decks are far and beyond, you know, completely out of the game, I think because Ib the World Chalice Justiciar has been banned, in the OCG, Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon has an errata as well, so like that's like one of the key components of like those types of decks. You're really not going to see too much of this Draconet combos anymore. Thankfully, it's really nice to know that that's not going to be the case, but I think it's fascinating that even with the current, you know, global circumstances going on with coronavirus and everything, that the OCG actually did more to their ban list than the TCG did to ours. Now, I'm not trying to like criticize the TCG ban list any more than I already have, but it's not like the OCG just unlimited anything. Now, I guess like where you could make the argument there is if the OCG has been having a lot more in-person events. They haven't been having like regionals or anything as far as I understand. It's just been like, you know, locals at the very least, but at least they have like some data to go off of, and at least in addition to that, players have had a chance to play some of the cards out of like Rise of the Duelist in person. This is from Eternity Code, so I mean, they're just probably like, well, it's been like 2 formats, we can ban this card now. But yeah, I mean, at least it just actually addresses some of the problems in their format. Like I said, with Infernoble Knights combos, being able to just rip cards out of opponents' hands with Smoke Grenade of the Thief, and just different degenerate stuff like that. Like, no one likes that. It isn't fun. So even though this is a very minimalistic ban list when you look at it, it actually accomplishes something rather important, addressing a problematic card. And I admire that they actually took initiative to do something about it, rather than, you know, in the TCG just unlimiting some cards and saying, oh, have fun for another 3 months. I think that's just what's so frustrating about the whole thing to me. But it's cool to see what the OCG is always up to, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think, if you have any further thoughts or insights on some of the hits, or if you like the hits on this OCG ban list. I'd really love to hear those thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and we'll see you next time.